The information provided on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical or professional advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before starting any new exercise or nutrition program. The opinions expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the podcast or its sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talk Your Abs Off. I am Abby Clapper, your host, and today I am joined by a dear friend, Dr. Catherine Belden. Catherine, how are you doing today?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing great, Abby. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Kat, can you tell me just a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background so that the audience can get to know you a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I have been a registered nurse now for 30 years, just made my 30th year recently. Thank you. I have been in academia now for 15 of those 30 years, making new nurses, BSN all the way to PhD. So I've had a very lucrative, illustrious career in nursing. It's been quite a blessing. And I've have 4 children. I recently lost my husband in April. As well as it's been a challenging year for our family, but we continue to push forward. And my 4 children are grown; they're doing great. Um, and I am looking forward to the new future that I have, including a massive weight loss that I had over the last few years. So I'm happy to share some of my words of wisdom about weight loss and how to keep it off and maintain and all of those great things that go along with getting healthy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing just a little bit about yourself. Love you and your family so much. And your weight loss journey is something that I really wanted to share with anyone who listens to this podcast and just share with as many people as possible, honestly, because your journey was so inspiring. And I kind of met you about halfway through your journey. And so, you told me about before I met you, and I've kind of gotten to watch since then, and it has been absolutely incredible. And I just think it would be so fun for people to hear about it. So, your health and wellness journey. Tell me about when it started, and kind of bring me up to speed to kind of where you are now.
Sure, I can probably share this in 5 seconds. I was overweight all my life. I've struggled with my weight all my life. About 5 or 6 years ago, some things happened in my life, like everybody, that become real turning points for you. And so at those turning points, I finally took a hard look at myself and I said, what do you want out of life? Do you want to be, my mother was a very obese lady. It of course affected her health dramatically. She passed away having been a very brittle diabetic, lost both legs to amputation, had horrendous blood pressure issues, heart issues, you name it, she had it wrong. And finally her kidneys failed. So I could see myself over the years on that real trajectory. And so about 6 years ago, I got to the point with some things that happened in my life that said, you've got to get control of yourself. You've got to get yourself in order. It started one day, and my poor husband, who has passed on, would laugh at this if he heard me say it, but it started actually with an argument with him. And I just got so frustrated with myself and with life in general and even him, that I said, I've got to go for a walk. I've got to get out of the house and I've got to walk. So I started one morning walking 500 extra steps. That's all I did. I just picked one thing and I said, you're going to change one thing in your life. I didn't worry about my diet at that time. I get out there and move because I had a very sedentary job. I just didn't have to move a whole lot during the day. So I started that morning. It was a Saturday morning. It was in August. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I walked 500 steps. The next day I got up and did 500 steps. And every day through that first week, I set myself up for success. I laid out workout clothes. I made sure nothing was on my calendar for early in the morning. I just kind of cleaned an hour off for myself to go walk, reflect, pray, think about what I needed to do with myself. And before I knew it, by the end of the first month, I was doing 1,000 extra steps a day.
Wow.
And then by the second month, it was 2,000. Before I knew it, within a year, I was averaging about 9 to 10,000 steps a day. This was over and above my regular day. So I was averaging about 3.5 to 4 miles a day walking. And it was so mind clearing and soul surviving at that point. It really gave me so much clarity. It was time for me to pray, to speak to God. I'm very spiritual, you know that. And it just was my therapy, I guess. And so it became a new addiction. I have kind of an addictive personality. This became a new good addiction. And about 6 months into it, I said, okay, walking's going great. I had lost roughly, I don't know, maybe 25 pounds just with walking. Um, I said, it's time to clean up the diet. It's time to really do housekeeping there. So I went into the first thing I did was I got rid of a lot of carbs. I didn't get rid of all carbs. I got rid of Doritos, which was a horrendous addiction I had. No offense to the Doritos community. Still love y'all. Still love y'all. Still have a bag of Doritos every once in a while. I had to not eat half a pound of Doritos a day if I was going to fight this.
I hear
So
that.
yeah, so I got rid of the Doritos, I got rid of the snack cakes, I got rid of the candy bars, I got rid of anything that wasn't a whole food, basically. I increased my water tremendously. I cut out the diet. I never was a sugary soda drinker. I drank Diet Coke, I drank Diet Sprite, the diet stuff, but I still got rid of that from a sodium standpoint. And it wasn't everything, Abby. It was one step at a time. So it was the walking, then it was get rid of the junk food, then it was get rid of the diet sodas, increase the water, increase the whole foods. And then I started um, weightlifting. My son, who is a bodybuilder and has basically rebuilt himself as well, he went from over 300 pounds down to about 220.
Wow.
Solid muscle, 6'4". He's just an amazing, amazing human being. I am a very proud mama.
As you should be.
But I'm very proud of all my kids, but this one really turned his life around in so many ways. And so he sat down with me one day and he said, I'm going to build you a strength training plan. You're going to start slow. You do one little bit at a time. So daily walking was still happening. Diet cleanup was in effect. Now we brought the strength training to bear. So this is about probably, I don't know, 8 months to a year in this journey. By now I'm down a good, probably close to 50 pounds in the year. And the clothes were fitting better. The skin was looking healthier. The hair was cool. Things were looking really good. My nails were getting strong. Things I could see small physical changes happening pretty dramatically over time.
And really quick, I just want to ask, how old were you when you kind of started this shift in your health and wellness journey?
So I'm 53 today. I just made 53 in April. So that was about 6 years ago.
Okay.
So probably about 47, 48, somewhere around there. So never too late to teach an old dog new tricks. Let's put it that
Absolutely.
way. So I got started with the strength training. It was very slow going. I hated every second of it. I didn't want to do it. It hurt. Brandon pushed me. And finally, it got to the point where I felt like I was a little bit growing out of his control. And it was hard for him to kind of manage me because, I'm mom. So
Yeah.
I hired a personal trainer who is a former MMA fighter. And he taught me boxing. I was just fascinated. So I became this real, and I think you could tell I'm not like, bulky. I'm not a bulked up person. But I got very toned. And so over that whole next year, it was all about the strength training. And so the walking's continuing, the strength training's going on, diet got better. So then I really kind of hit a plateau. And I think we all know plateaus are not pleasant. And they're very frustrating and they're very worrisome. And am I doing the right things? Am I doing something wrong? So I again took stock. I talked to my personal trainer. I talked to Brandon. And we came to the conclusion that maybe I was still getting maybe too many calories in. Even though I was eating better foods, I still maybe the volume wasn't good. So I decided to try intermittent fasting. And I did. And I know there's, different camps about whether or not that's a good thing or not a good thing. For me, it worked. So I focused on 2 healthy meals a day and 1 snack. And when I say a snack, it was like a cup of grapes, a few strawberries. It wasn't anything crazy like another meal. The intermittent fasting started out at like four. I did 4 hours of intermittent fasting. So if I slept for 6 hours or 8 hours, then I added 4 hours of intermittent fasting. So I was basically fasting for 12 hours with nighttime. I've never been a breakfast person, so it was kind of an easy fix to include extra hours in the morning, have black coffee, and that was it. And usually around 12:30, 1 o'clock, I'd have lunch. And lunch might consist of like plant-based burger or a regular turkey burger and maybe a little bit of rice and broccoli or something like that. And then a snack in the afternoon was a couple of pieces of, whole, like a cheddar cheese, block cheese, and maybe an apple or whatever. And then dinner was with the family. And it was whatever the family was eating. If it was pizza, I didn't eat the whole pizza. I ate maybe 2 slices, but I didn't hold back at night because then that would sustain me through the night and I wouldn't wake up feeling hungry in any form or fashion. So I went ahead and took a stab at that, and the intermittent fasting has stuck. I still, to this day, intermittent fast 16 to 18 hours a day.
Wow.
I eat roughly probably one small meal and then a dinner at night. And
Okay.
that's about it. Every blue moon, I might have a donut, I might have a bag of Doritos. I mean, I might really go off the rails every once in a while, but it's not an everyday occurrence. If I have a sweet, it might be once a week or twice a week at the most. But generally, I feel very sustained with what I eat. The exercise has helped tremendously. And I took back up, I was a drummer in high school. So recently, in the last probably 6 months since my husband passed, I took that hobby back up. It is a great workout,
You're
ladies.
drumming?
I'm
I did not
drumming.
know this. I did not
I
know this.
drum,
That's
and
amazing.
I took that back up. Matter of fact, I'm in my home office right now, and my kid is right behind us, just right behind my computer screen. And yep, it's a great exercise. It's a workout. It is. If you play the
Mhm.
way I play a lot of heavy metal.
Put your
Then
heart and soul into that.
then it absolutely works you out. So, but yeah, now I'm at the point of maintenance and I'm looking for ways. I get bored very easily. I need a lot of things to keep my attention. So I look for different activities, and this may not be popular amongst our beloved personal trainers, but if it's exercise looking, I'm not as keen on it. So I have to do things that keep my activity level up, but trick my brain into thinking, oh, this is just fun. It's not exercise, it's fun. One of my new pastimes is to go to Honeymoon Island. I hope it's all good real soon, post hurricanes, because I will walk all of Honeymoon Island and just love it. I'm a beach girl. I think I was a mermaid in a former life. Who knows? But that drumming, walking in my neighborhood, strength training, and now the strength training has changed a bit. Instead of doing a whole lot in the gym, I actually do a lot of lifting with like furniture, like simple things like lifting a chair, a dining room chair or something like
No
that. If
way.
I
That's
can,
amazing.
and just I find different ways to change it up. Because, and not that I don't love the gym, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it gets to be crowded and, it's not always fun. It seems sometimes too regimented. I
Mhm.
love strength bands. I love yoga. I love isometric exercises, things that I can use my body weight as control.
Absolutely.
So I started out, my heaviest in my life was 325 pounds. That was my heaviest. I'm not proud of that, but I am certainly proud of the girl that is here today before you because now she's down to 162.
Oh, that's
And I'm
amazing.
5'9". To give everyone some context, I'm 5 feet 9 inches tall. So I'm a pretty
Yes,
tall girl.
that is very tall
Yep.
and is absolutely looking amazing in her fun clothes that she wears. She has changed her style up. It is so fun. It's got bright colors. It's bold. It fits you very well. It really
Well,
does.
It's really funny because people who knew me in high school knew me like this. And, with the cool, I've had short hair since I was 12. I've never known long hair, nor do I care to. It's just not part of who I am. And I just really feel like I finally, in this last 5 years, especially, come back to myself. And part of that is just reevaluating life and figuring out what's truly important to each person. And it became a lot about self care. I
Mm,
can't fill everyone else's cup if my cup is very empty. And my cup was extremely empty. So it was time to just take care of Catherine for a little while. And so now I can do so
absolutely.
much more for others.
That's amazing. I do want to ask, I do want to kind of come back to one thing that you and I have previously talked about, and it was when you started working with your personal trainer, who is an MMA fighter, and
Yeah.
when you really started lifting heavier weights. What happened in your journey when you started lifting heavy? Now, when I say heavy, I want you to tell everyone what kind of weights you were lifting, so that we all kind of know what you're working with.
Oh boy, y'all are gonna like this one. So I'm embarrassed to say when I first started, I was probably I had been in a car accident in Louisiana. So my muscles I think were pretty atrophied because I was very inactive for the first year after that car accident. I had some pretty significant back problems, neck problems. It was very painful to even just try to walk. I had horrendous sciatica. So it felt like I was walking on electric shocks every time I took a step. It was pretty miserable. Part of it was getting the weight off of me. The initial aerobics got the weight off so that I could start building up muscle. So when I started lifting a 3 pound weight, just like trying to, do the arm raises was challenging. So I
Absolutely.
started at 3 pounds. Now I can lift, I don't know, last time I probably lifted chest press. I was doing 85 pounds. Um, or any kind of arm, like bicep, I can do about 50 pounds on a bicep. Um, Lat pull downs, I can do well over 100 pounds. So that started at 3 pound weights, just to give you some context. The legs to me were the greatest improvement. The first quad press I ever did, I think was like maybe 20 pounds, 30 pounds, something like that. I can do close to 200 now with my legs.
Incredible. I think that honestly is, to me, that's what most people need to hear. Like, when you start your health and wellness journey, you're not going to start lifting 50 pounds, right?
Nope.
And the
Nope.
people, especially like when I'm building programs for clients who are just starting out, we're lifting the 3 and 5 pound weights, and there is
Exactly.
ain't nothing wrong with that at all. You know what I mean? And
And I'll
even
tell you
lifting,
secretly, sometimes what I do is I go back for the toning of fine muscles and all. I'll go back to like the 5 pound weight or the ten
yeah,
pound weight. It's not always about, oh goodness, I got to lift 200 pounds or more.
right,
It's about consistency. For me, it was. It was consistency. It was staying committed to it 3 to 4 times a week, especially in the beginning. I was in the gym almost every day.
yeah.
And then it got to the point where I'm like, okay, maybe this is overkill. Let me ratchet it down a little bit, because I was really pleased with my results. And so now my challenge is I have a good bit of loose skin from all the weight loss, and very soon I will be fixing that. I'm very proud of that. I'm going to go through a surgery to fix that so that my body matches the outside will match what the inside's doing.
Hmm.
I just saw a cardiologist. They said I probably have the heart of like an 18-year-old.
We love
Um,
that.
my resting pulse rate is usually in the low 50s. My
Okay.
resting pulse rate when I was in the 320s was about 90.
Okay.
Resting.
Yeah.
So you can imagine when I exerted myself, I was easy tachycardic
Right.
with over 100. So just the cardiovascular health changes have been a win.
Hmm.
Um, because it's given my children, they already are missing one parent. Now it's giving my children a chance with me. So
Yes,
I'm happy.
absolutely.
I'm happy with
Well,
that.
congratulations on that whole weight loss journey. I know, for those who don't know, Kat was even in the running for a magazine competition, and we were all voting for, and you got close. You were really close.
Very close. I was in the top 10. to win. And there was some beautiful, I had so much good competition. I
You
couldn't
did.
even believe I made it as far as I did. And, one day probably I have a lot of personal things going on right now in my life, navigating the loss of my husband and, changing some things in my life. So once those things hopefully settle in, I may get back into, I have considered going back into really formal strength training and
Mhm.
actually considering competition. But I want to wait until after I'm healed surgically, and so
Yeah,
maybe that'll be a avenue in the next year. It's
absolutely.
the takeaway is you're never too old. It's never too late. Start now. Just start
Mhm.
today. One thing. Pick one. Make a list of the things you're willing to do, and pick one that you're most passionate about, and go do it.
And
And
start
don't
with
make
the light weights. There's
and it has
nothing wrong with the light
nothing.
weights.
Yeah, start with a lightweight. And really, Abby, one thing I'd love to stress to your view is it has nothing to do with motivation.
Mhm.
Nothing at all. Everything that I did was about discipline. What was I most committed to? And I was most committed to myself and my health, and I made that the massive major priority in my life, and the rest of the world could just wait. And that's easy sometimes said than done, especially when there's tragedy and bad things happening in your life. But I've had a lot of rough things happen in my life, and I don't take no for an answer, and I don't stop, and I don't let anybody stand in my way. And so if you're committed to it, there's no stopping you. You can do it. I'm
Yes.
living proof. I'm living proof.
100%. And the beauty of this podcast, my goal with this podcast is it started because nothing in the fitness industry should be cookie cutter. Everyone takes a different path. Everyone needs something different. So what works for you might not work for someone else, but bits and pieces of it might. So all of these talks that I have is to help people kind of think through what they, like you said, what they might enjoy and what they might want to try, what seems realistic for them, so that they can find something that they can turn into a sustainable lifestyle, because this is something that you're now sustaining, for the rest of your life. It's something that you're not going to let go of. And because you've seen how it's changed you, you've seen the benefits, you've seen, even with your son, how it changed him, and just all of the positive things that it brings to your life. And that's the goal here, and that's why I thought that this story was so important. And another thing that I want to make sure that we touch in on this episode before we kind of break off is, you and I had talked about, so we're talking about strength training, a lot of the strength training, and especially strength training when you're older. You had mentioned that there was a study on muscle cross sections in, I think, an older male. And I would love if you could just kind of just talk about that study again here, because I think it'll really kind of drive the nail home of why strength training is so important.
Absolutely. So, and there have been several studies on strength training in older populations, probably not to the extent that it needs to be, because, of course, the focus on health and wellness has always been on our younger populations. And that's no chagrin to that. I mean, absolutely, our younger populations must stay, in order to maintain health in older age, it's important that we hardwire those skills early. But there have been some studies, recent studies showing that amongst older males, we are finding, because of the changes of life, once we get into our 50s and 60s, the hormone changes that occur. It's really interesting to see the dichotomy between male and female. So in men, we all know that testosterone rules the day. Most of our gentlemen have a high testosterone level. That's what makes them, they have the Y chromosome, so it makes them male. In our ladies, we have the X chromosome, so estrogen rules the day. The problem with estrogen is it's not a big fan of muscle growth. It's a great hormone to do many other things, but it's not like testosterone. So our men tend to be able to put on muscle better and have stronger muscles and more flexibility of that nature and all whatnot. The interesting thing is, as we get older in our men, of course, I think we all know testosterone levels in some men drop significantly. That changes the whole trajectory of how a man's body functions now. So the muscle that he could put on very easily in his 20s and 30s becomes more challenging in his 60s, 70s, 80s. For ladies, our estrogen levels happen in the menopausal area, And so we don't have as much estrogen. And actually, there are a few studies out there that are talking about that it may become a little bit easier for ladies to build muscle later in life because we don't have estrogen as such a primary source of hormonal regulation. It's still there, don't get me wrong. We all have estrogen levels. Men do too, and women have testosterone. We just don't have it to the levels that the opposite sex has it at. So there's been a few studies out there that have encouraged, especially the ladies, to focus on strength training. Number one, it helps to fight osteoporosis, which we know as estrogen levels drop off, that bone density becomes a challenge for ladies. And so by having stronger muscles and building, working with those heavier weights, we're actually promoting bone density in our bones. So that's an important key element. For our gentlemen, of course, we want to maintain as much testosterone as we can. So it's important that strength training have a good muscle. Testosterone is very related to muscle growth. And so it's important to continue to build that muscle so that you have sufficient testosterone levels internally without, extra taking of hormones or whatever, just to promote what we have naturally. So it's really interesting to see the dichotomy happen between the two genders related to hormonal changes in older adults. And we always assume that younger adults need to focus on the strength training. If anyone needs to focus on it, it's probably our folks 50 and older.
Absolutely. But there's still a benefit. So let's say someone is lifting in their 30s and they continue to lift well into their 70s and 80s, they're still going to see benefit, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And they shouldn't stop. Again, this is what's so probably concerning about for our young children. We see such an obesity epidemic amongst our young children and our young teens. I mean, we have teenagers who are 15, 16 years old who are having gastric bypass surgery. I
Mm.
mean, it's really just it's heartbreaking because I grew up in an era where we ran around outside. We played from 7 in the morning till probably 10 at night. Our parents probably didn't even know where we were, but we came back filthy, but we came back energized. We had had a great day of playing, riding bikes, swinging from the trees, all the fun stuff. And now our children are so embedded with, and I don't want to harp on electronics, they're wonderful. There's a good mechanism for that, but it takes away from the physical activity that
Hmm.
we did when we were young children.
It's
So,
very true.
yeah, it's really challenging. And I'm very excited to say that I'm working on, at the end of December, early January, I will be a certified health coach. I've been
Yay!
working on health coaching for this year because I want to share this story. I certainly am not interested in personal training, but I am interested in helping people to be disciplined. And I think that's where a lot of health coaches are maybe missing a little bit of the mark. It's about motivation, not really. From someone who's lived this, it's the discipline. Motivation gets you up and running. Discipline is what keeps you going and
It's what
keeps it
keeps you going.
maintained. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think that you will make a phenomenal health coach, especially with your background and your own journey. You are going to be able to relate to so many people and really walk with them because you were in their shoes. You know what I mean?
100%.
So I think that that's absolutely fantastic, and I love this story. And I think there was one more study that I wanted to reference. It was one that you mentioned. I think it was a man who had been lifting. He had started lifting when he was younger, and they followed his muscle cross sections up until he was into his 70s, 80s, whatever it was.
Oh,
How did they see that his muscle cross section? So the muscle cross section is if you were to like take a chunk of the muscle, look at it under a microscope. How did that change or not change as he aged?
actually, it continued to improve. He had very little. I remember the study you're referencing now. He had very little change to his. It if anything, stayed consistent.
Okay.
So the fact of the matter is, the strength training he did as a younger person stayed consistent. Now he did have some, in some cross sections, he did have some decline,
Mhm.
but with consistency, you're able to maintain at least the majority of the muscle strength that you have. So, it's encouraging to think if we start now, where will you be 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? It's really encouraging to see. There's another individual that I think of all the time who many people may see on TikTok or on Snapchat. She does some wonderful things. It's Train with Joan. And
Mm,
I'm going to give a shameless plug to Train with Joan. She was very inspiring for me. This is a lady who's now in her, memory serves, late 70s,
wow.
and has done a phenomenal job. Really started working out heavy late in life in her 60s, and is just now such an she was an inspiration to me as I started working out. I watched what she did. I watched a lot of her podcasts and just informative things that she did. And I kept thinking, she can do it. I know I can do it. I've got, 10, 15 years on her. I know I can get started now. And so women are really starting to come into their own with strength training and weightlifting. And it's not, you don't have to worry about getting bulky. You can see I'm not a bulky person, but I am toned. I mean, there's very little, there's fat, but there's not a ton, not like what it used to be. And it's just nice and firm now. And when I flex my bicep, it's really exciting because like you can feel the muscle. And, I didn't used to have that. I'd flex my bicep and feel bone,
Yeah.
fat and bone, because there really wasn't any muscle tissue under there. So yes, continuing to strength train into our later years is really key.
That's amazing. Well, everyone, you are all so lucky because you are going to get a second episode with Miss Catherine. And we're going to cut this episode here. I do want you, Kat, if you don't mind, just sharing where people can find you if anyone has questions and does want to contact you, just based off of what you've talked about today. If they have questions about your journey, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure, happy to do. You can email me at drcatbell@gmail.com. That's DRCATBEL @gmail.com. And that's probably the easiest way to get me. I always ask folks who email me, give me at least 2 to 3 days turnaround time to respond to you. Um, and I'm happy to help.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine. Catherine is a very busy woman, so the fact that she took the time today to chat with us is such an honor. And I am looking forward to continuing this conversation in our next episode. So thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you. I enjoyed being with you guys today. Take care.